you confidential. That's right. It follows on America's Mayor Live, and it goes into somewhat more confidential subjects, and it offers us an opportunity to hopefully exchange telephone calls, which Ted is starting to arrange. Oh, we did. We finally got a couple in, but we're going to start near the top now. Yeah, let's see if we can get some people to call in and give him the number, Ted, which is... We have two calls waiting. But let me start and tell you the story that I want to tell you. So there's an article today in the New York Post about the U.S. attorney in Pittsburgh from 2017 to 2021, Scott Brady. And he apparently, in a closed-door interview with the House Judiciary Committee, made some very, very strong charges about how the investigation of Biden was interfered with by the FBI, and how they had no interest into looking into allegations of Ukrainian corruption broadly, and particularly anything that intersected with Hunter Biden and his role in Burisma. He said the credible allegations involving Hunter apparently worried officials in FBI headquarters as the probe spanned the length of the presidential election cycle from January to October 2020. Well, I should tell you, in January of 2020, I visited with Scott Brady and his staff and the staff of the FBI. I have a 48-page memo outlining my PowerPoint presentation, which at some point I'm going to show to you on America's Mayor Confidential. Might have to do it as a podcast. Some of it now is outdated because this is everything we knew as of October 2020. But I really believe it would be extremely important for you to see this, because I think you would realize when you see this that Joe Biden could have been prosecuted well before he ran for president. Without all that interference with president, I think you'll also realize when you see it that I developed these allegations before he was running for president. And not for the motive that was attributed to me by the crooked press, the same press that called me a Russian pawn for 16 or 17 months. I obtained them because I was defending Donald Trump, and they came up as a corollary to the shenanigans that went on in Ukraine, which presented a great, strong defense to the Steele dossier. So I will share that outline with you. We'll probably find some time that it's going to require some technological whatever, and I'll have to go through it with Bob Costello, I think, to make sure I don't give away anything that was. There'd be nothing confidential. I mean, nothing top secret about it, but things that maybe it would not be best to put out publicly yet. It'll eventually all be out publicly. And some of it has been superseded by the hard drive that either makes it more detailed or corrects some of it. That we can go through, and that would be very interesting. But the main point is that these people prevented a prosecution of the former vice president of one of the most serious crimes, allegedly, because these papers allege, they don't prove, allegedly committed. That's unforgivable. This was a straight out presentation of witnesses, documents, tape recordings, audio and video that would be evidence that I believe, in my judgment, as a prosecutor of great experience, was a slam dunk for an indictment. Even if you consider the grand jury living up to the standard of probable cause that a crime was committed, it was way beyond probable cause. I think it met the standard of reasonable doubt and would have stood the test of any jury. It had more evidence then, before the hard drive, than any case that I ever handled. And as a prosecutor, I never lost a case. So I had pretty good judgment. 2 hung juries, went back and convicted. So I don't have any doubt that this would have been a very strong case. And it could have been brought I mean, the evidence was presented to them in 2020 because they turned it down so many times. I mean, the case could have been brought even before that. But the evidence was available before he ran for president. Sure as heck didn't stop him from indicting Trump, right? And he wasn't a candidate. Biden. Trump was a candidate. Indicted him 4 times. Didn't stop him with Trump, where they have no evidence. And here they have evidence of multi-millions of dollars in bribes with documentary proof, eyewitnesses. An honest prosecutor can't turn this case down. When we presented this case to Scott Brady's staff, his chief assistant was extraordinarily enthusiastic about it. He had the reaction of a good old honest prosecutor that warmed my heart, because that's what I had working for me when I was U.S. attorney. Took me back to the old days when we would get excited about putting together a case on an evil person to protect society against him. And at this point, enough of Biden's criminality had come out that you had the Ukrainian case cold, ready to prosecute, almost in a gift wrapped. What you didn't have, and this is what the subsequent investigation with the hard drive by the senators Grassley and Johnson, who did heroic work, and by the committee, they have now developed and filled out the rest of it, the Russian money and the unbelievable amount of money from China, and the sellout of America to China. I mean, you don't realize, because you don't get into it deeply. This is about as close as you get to treason as you want to get with China. I mean, just kind of make an analogy to, suppose Roosevelt was getting money from Hitler, or Kennedy was getting money from Khrushchev, or Reagan was getting money from Gorbachev. They'd all been prosecuted, wouldn't they? I don't know, they might have been executed. He was getting money from China, millions. We know it. It's provable. And we let him sit there getting people killed because, in addition to being crooked and evil, he's guided by a communist ideology, probably from Obama. It's no way a puppet. You do a puppet, you put it in you like this, you go like that. So here's the little puppet. Well, I don't even want to use that poor little thing here. Here's the little puppet. Boop, boop. Joe, say yes. Yes. Joe, greet the president of Cambodia. I'm very honored to meet the president of Colombia.
Say don't.
Cambodia, Joe. Kambubada. Kambubada. Not a joke. It's dreadfully serious. People have it because of that terrible mistake. People have died because of the fraud committed by the people during the, even before we get to the counting of the votes, during the election campaign, when they censored and hid the hard drive under rocks of corruption, including the 51 prostitutes who call themselves intelligence agents. Our American press, which should even be called an American press. Imagine suppressing the hard drive. But it would be very interesting to hear Scott Brady's testimony, because there are things I still haven't gotten an answer to, like what happened to the woman that we presented to the FBI who was under threat of death, who was an accountant for Burisma, who promised that she could get the offshore bank accounts in exchange for the witness protection program. It seemed to me that was a no-brainer. You didn't have to give her the witness protection program until you got the evidence from her. Did anybody try to get the evidence from her? If you didn't, you should check into jail. Okay, so who do we have on the phone?
On the line, we have our friend Elliot in Detroit. Elliot in Detroit, you're on with the mayor.
Elliot, how are you?
Ted? Wonderful, sir. Thank you for taking my call. My question has to do with Chuck Grassley and this latest information he's provided, stating that 40 confidential human sources have turned over some type of evidence to the FBI concerning the Biden family the last 10 to 15 years. And I'd like to know, Christopher Wray took over in August of 2017, then his new deputy director, David Bowditch, took over in April 2018. And wouldn't this information be something that these gentlemen were made aware of at some point? Because Grassley had stated that something to do with the Washington office and the FBI field office. So as this information is coming into these special agent in charge, wouldn't it be their job to turn the information over to the higher level FBI agents? And are we going to be able to find out when did Christopher Wray first know about this information? And, possibly David Bowditch, who has left the FBI, when did these, directors learn of this information? Because this would have been real helpful when you came out with the evidence in Ukraine, because this right here coincides with everything you've brought forward, Rudy. And every American should be very concerned for the fact that you guys came out with this information and these FBI agents sat on this information for years and never let us know about it.
Well, you make an extraordinarily good point. And all this does actually is back up what they did with the hard drive, right? They had the hard drive from, what was it, November or December of 2019. They verified it in December of 2019. So in December of 2019, they figured out that it was definitely Hunter's and valid. You read the hard drive and you have to have an IQ below 10 not to realize that it contains hundreds of crimes, some of them self-contained, meaning you don't need more than the hard drive to prosecute it, and also contains some of the most disgusting, perverted crap that you're ever going to see in your life, including underage children. The FBI sat on all that. Of course, he had to know about it. He had to know about it. He had to be part of it. And these 40 people, the 40 people who came along saying that they were stopped from developing evidence on the Bidens, who knows? But probably he was the guy who stopped them. So
I mean, what's the normal chain of command if a confidential human source comes to an FBI agent with this type of information? Obviously, the agent usually turns that information over to the higher levels. So there had to be a lot of people in the FBI that knew this information existed and refused to bring it toward the American people when you guys brought forth this evidence. And I consider that treason myself.
I don't disagree with you. An allegation against a former vice president, because that's what he would have. He wasn't when many of these allegations came forward, even when the hard drive came forward, he was not even a candidate for president. So, but he was the former vice president, and many of the crimes were committed when he was former vice president. The crimes with Ukraine were considered were committed at the highest levels of two governments: the vice president of the United States and the president of the Ukraine. That has to go to the director of the FBI and the attorney general.
And Obama knew it all.
Obama directed it all.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you can't sit on this kind of corruption like Obama did and not be an extremely corrupt man yourself.
Well, in the video, when Joe Biden says, go ahead and call the president, that clearly showed everyone that Obama knew.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I remember as if it were yesterday, the first time I saw it. I couldn't believe it. I made him play it for me twice. because
unbelievable.
I have occasionally done this on my podcast, but I can outline that and diagram it like we used to diagram sentences in grammar school for for the preposition and the noun and the pronoun and the whole thing. I could diagram that whole thing for you and show that it proves all in and of itself the crime of bribery. Joe Biden, at that point, not demanded, but working with a challenged IQ, admitted every element of the crime of bribery. And then the self-important anti-American big shots who belong to the Foreign Policy Institute, I think that's the same one that let Sullivan change his article. They all applauded for him. And many of them are lawyers, and they couldn't figure out he just admitted bribery.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking my call, Rudy.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very good call. Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot. We'll talk to you soon.
Elliot brings up another point, which is these people have great, degrees and pedigrees, and they may be very smart or had been very smart, but this kind of warped ideology can interfere with your ability to reason because you see everything through the prism of the ideology, and your ability to do Aristotelian reasoning or Socratic reasoning is destroyed. Yeah. So you don't say, oh my goodness, he just offered him, the guy's the president of the country, he just offered $1 billion loan guarantee. That's an offer. Second, he just asked him to remove the prosecutor. That's requesting official action. He just offered to give or withhold money in exchange for official action. If you were a C law student, immediately you would say, here's what happened in your mind. Bribery. Yeah. Bribery. Now, having prosecuted bribery cases, I can't tell you how often I heard judges charge juries that way. Now, the bare bones video to be a really good case had to be fleshed out with a motive. So he says, I offered to give or withhold a thing of value in exchange for official action, the removal of a prosecutor. Now, he claims he did it because the guy was corrupt. Doesn't matter. It's still a crime. And what does he care if the guy's corrupt? Everybody in Ukraine's corrupt. He's given loads of money to Zelensky. Zelensky's not corrupt. If Zelensky's not corrupt, he spends an awful lot of time with the most corrupt person in Ukraine who does all the money laundering, Kolomoisky, and he brought him back out of exile. So I don't know. He's either corrupt or he spends a large part of his time with his godfather, Kolomoisky, who was the most corrupt guy in Ukraine. So that's the crime of bribery. But now you need intent and motive can really help supply intent, right? Here's the one thing he left out of that statement. What did he leave out of the statement? Rob gets the prize tonight, not Teddy. Rob gets the prize tonight. He left his son out. Pretty important, huh? Pretty important. He left the fact that his son was on the board of that company.
Could that just have been a coincidence?
Of course, they're all coincidences when it's Democrats. Yeah, it's all coincidence. He just left it out. Yeah. He left it out because he knew it was a crime. He left it out because it was really like a false exculpatory statement. He left it out because he's been a criminal since the day he came into the Senate. He's been taking, it was like a trailer trash senator when he got elected. He was taking anything he could get from his crooked brothers. And then he became a big shot international crook.
Being protected all along
protected all along the way by his family.
Right.
And here, funny thing is, the press didn't protect him at first against being stupid or against being a liar. I mean, they went after him really hard in 88 when he got caught lying. They even pronounced that he was finished. Sam Donaldson did. Too bad Donaldson wasn't right. A lot of people would be alive today if Donaldson turned out to be right. I mean, they basically said he's inherently dishonest, which he was. I mean, a guy that plagiarizes in law school, what's going to turn out to be?
Yeah.
Well, in fact, maybe some can recover or not get too much worse. Just plagiarize. Well, he turned in from a plagiarizer to a major world-class traitor.
They should have saw the signs coming back then.
Yeah. Well, what else do we have?
Anybody else?
Yeah. So,
re-
Mayor,
remember for next week, I promised him the outline. We got to make sure we do that.
the what?
The outline.
Okay.
I promised our
Yeah, we have
wonderfully
some other calls.
loyal
What's
audience
going on here?
the outline. There was a very good article by Daniel McCarthy about why the heck would anybody Jewish be a Democrat? And then there was David Mamet at Unheard wrote the following: we New York Jews have always voted for the Democrats. Even today, Jews are electing Democratic presidents who give aid to the terrorist state of Iran,
They must be
which pays for the equipment and ordnance now eradicating Jews. Yet there's no more mystery in the anti-Semitism of Democratic Party with its links to Democrat socialists and pro-Palestinians who call for Israel, i.e. the death of the Jews. Democrats still refuse to retract the blood libel that Israel bombed the hospital, despite absolute proof to the contrary, and to call out Hamas atrocities. Quote, many good German Jews in the 30s ignored their brothers and sisters to the east and later died with them. Today, many liberal American Jews seem ready to die too. I don't know if that's a bit over dramatic, but I give it to you for your consideration. It's not my place to tell people of a different religion, who they should vote for or not, or people should vote based on a religion. But people should vote based on their survival. And I just can't imagine voting for a political party that has members that want to see my co-religionist killed and me killed. And the party, even the Jewish members of the party remain virtually silent. I have never heard, maybe he has, but I've never heard Schumer take these anti-American socialist communist
where is he
terrorists
on all of this?
hiding Biden's basement below his skirts, I think.
Yeah.
Democratic Florida Representative Jared Moskowitz, however, is a bit of an exception to this. He's got the guts not to take on the president, but at least KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre. And on Monday, he did it for downplaying the potential for anti-Semitic hate crimes. He was referring to her weak answer about the attacks. When Jean-Pierre was asked any credible threats against the Jewish community, she basically brought up the simple answer is yes. You're concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism. Of course, we're also worried about hatred against Muslim Americans. Must do better.
Wow. Doubling down on it.
Yeah, I mean, so the only way you can protect yourself is by voting. I mean, it's up to you to make that decision. Of course, the Democrat Party does have the exceptionally talented Jamal Bowman, who is trying to turn fire alarms into door handles because he thinks it's easier to get through a door by pulling off the top, by first of all disabling all the signs, getting rid of all the signs that say, that it's a fire, it's a fire alarm, and then taking the plastic off of it and pulling it down and letting the alarm go off because you can't get the elevator.
He says he wants to open the door.
That's what he said. And he pled guilty, and he
$1,000 fine.
he got yeah. And then later on, he completely admitted in what he said, that he perjured himself in front of the judge. The footage shows the opposite of Bowman's version of events to the judge. He didn't pull the fire alarm to open the door. He tried to open the door and to sound the fire alarm. The door he was trying to get through was already clearly marked an emergency exit only, the sign taken down by Bowman. He took down the sign. Push until alarm sounds. Door will unlock in 30 seconds, it said. The simple reality is that he lied during his guilty plea, for which he should be prosecuted now for perjury. He won't. It's the U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia who wouldn't prosecute Biden, but puts the J6 people in jail for 95 years. Yeah, for waving at a police officer, which was mistaken. They also, desperately don't want to put out all the tape, and hopefully the new speaker can put out all tape. What a surprise you're going to find! I got to tell you, I was warned the night that it happened by people pointing out to me on the Sullivan tape all the Antifa people there, and the text message 2 days later there were 240 Antifa people there. And Ray, who's got to be one miserably corrupt person, refuses to say anything about it. Who do we have?
Let's go to our friend and not first-time caller. He's called before. Dennis in Indiana. Dennis, you're on with the mayor.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for taking my call.
It's very nice to talk to you, Dennis.
Yep, same here. I wanted to talk to you real quick about the new speaker. He's got an opportunity, and what everybody that I talk to wants to see. We feel terrible about Israel. Nobody cares about the Ukraine, frankly. We want the border secure. And we know that the last time Trump took the White House, the Senate, and the House, and the Senate and the House flatly refused to implement his agenda, and they were Republican. So this new speaker has an opportunity, and what we want to see is border security before anybody gets a nickel.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Not the promise, because Reagan got swindled in California. He legalized 5 million Mexicans and permanently flipped that state to the Democrats in exchange for future border security, and they never did it.
As I said, Ronald Reagan's my hero, but you're right. And I have to tell you, I did too. I helped to support the Simpson-Mazzoli bill. And it was stupid. I was my only defense is I was young, right, and stupid.
Well, you were assuming that the other side was honest.
I was.
And that they were good.
I was assuming that Democrats and Republicans differ not based on morality, but just based on a somewhat different philosophy of government. I didn't realize what slimy crooks so many of them have become. But of course, it is the party of slavery, so you should.
It definitely is, and it's our own fault that we've lost, because in 2006 they also did the Secure Fences Act and didn't build the fence.
Yeah, and of course, and they also were wildly in support of a wall until Trump came along.
Right.
Then the wall became xenophobic.
Right. They said that they were in control. We have John McCain, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, George Bush. Everybody said they wanted a wall, but no one was ever going to build it.
And they knew it all along. That was their
right.
plan.
Exactly. That's why it was like holy water on a vampire. Trump actually said he was going to build it, and it hit the fan at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't remember exactly when he proposed that. I remember talking about it and myself thinking, well, this is kind of a vanilla proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not going to really This is a good thing to do, but I thought of it as, well, everybody's in favor of this one. Some of the other things he had proposed originally on immigration, you would have thought of would be kind of controversial, but everybody agreed to a wall. And when he said it, I thought, well, here he's going to get some bipartisan, agreement.
Very interesting point.
And all of a sudden, they turned around in a day. In a day, walls became bad.
Right.
Of course, they
And
never
then,
took down the walls to
when-
their houses, did they?
No, of course not. And now, well, when you look now, when you see rare footage of what's coming across, it looks like an army. I mean, you hear people. I have a lot of friends up in New York. As you know, I come from New York. And everybody's afraid that they're going to flip a switch and we're going to get attacked.
Tell me again what that means. Pull the switch and we're going to get attacked.
Yeah, that's what everybody. Well, a lot of people I know up in New York think that they're waiting for a signal and that we're going to see some kind of an attack here in the United States.
Attacked by whom?
By the people coming across the border.
Oh.
What a scary thought.
Well, I hope not, and I don't think so. But the reason that would have some, create a problem or create some possibility for thought is we don't know who came in.
Exactly.
For 3 years, conservatively, there are about 3 million to 4 million people that we never saw. They came in here as if they were ghosts. And you would have to assume they were the worst ones, because the border, the border is not happenstance. It's directed by the cartels. So they're going to get the worst ones across without being detected, because they make the most money that way.
And if they
and plus the travel ban that Trump had in place on all the dangerous countries, Biden lifted that right away. So,
And if there was a secret plot like that going on right now, it would be up to national security to expose it.
Oh, but they're going after white supremacists.
Yeah, can we trust
And
that?
Catholics.
They'll go after the Proud Boys.
Yeah, I mean, I got to stop going to Latin Mass so I don't waste any resources of the FBI following me.
Yeah, well, they're probably listening to us right now.
I wanted to go to Latin Mass so maybe they would learn Latin and become more intelligent.
Yeah, that would help. If only we can make them.
Oh, this is a very interesting call and a lot of food for thought.
Yeah.
But
definitely. I love this new show. I wanted to say this is great that you're taking phone calls again.
Yeah. It's really a technological thing, and we finally solved it. But I'm glad we did.
Good.
Yeah. Well, thank God.
Good.
We got to stick together for the next year and almost a half, because this is a long road. But I believe that if good, decent, patriotic Americans stick together, we're going to have a big win.
And where in Indiana are you calling us from, Dennis?
Jasper. Well, Senator Mike Braun comes from Jasper.
Okay. Is Greg Pence your congressman?
No, this idiot, Larry Bouchon. He's a Republican.
Dr. Larry Bouchon.
He's a rhino.
I know exactly who you're talking. I was Greg Pence's communications
director. He's a rhino.
Oh, man. He started like on January 6th. He became an emotional retard. He was
afraid.
Dennis is right.
He was afraid of the shaman.
The guy with the hat on his head. Yeah.
the guy was a big clown. The cop. When you look at the video, the cops are laughing at him, and they let him do everything he wants to do.
Yeah, they said, "Hey, just don't mark the."
I mean, I don't understand how this guy got prosecuted. They actually opened the door to the chamber for him. They unlocked it.
Well, he was helping them. He was facilitating them and clearing people out of the Capitol.
They tried to open one door. There's actually one time when he holds the door for the cops.
Yeah.
And then he tries to get into the chamber, and one door is locked. The cops talk, and they go across and he unlocks it, and he lets them in. And then they stand there looking at him like,
could you please maybe leave?
No, this is funny.
Yeah.
And he gets up there and didn't break anything. He didn't hurt anything. He didn't burn anything.
He stood there.
I don't even know what he said, whatever he said.
He's out there talking about it all the time now. It's all over the place.
But I mean, imagine. I mean, they were afraid of the shaman.
And my congressman compared that to the British Army in the War of 1812.
Yeah, well, that you see that I
It's so
think
ridiculous.
I think that was very fortunate for my friend Donald Trump. They overdid it when they
Big
started
time.
doing the insurrection, and nobody brought a gun. There was no plan for insurrection. How were they going to overtake the government without a single gun? And then it turned out there was no evidence of insurrection. And even these miserably corrupt prosecutors and FBI agents can't even charge it.
Right. I talk to my wife and I tell her, if they picture like Robert E. Lee and Pickett's charge, like charging toward the Capitol to take over the United States, it's so stupid.
Yeah, well, that would be as if Lee charged without any guns.
Right, exactly.
That'd have been really effective.
The Hollywood scriptwriter who orchestrated the whole thing just felt that insurrection was a really good, powerful word to use. That's the one we'll use.
Well, it was all done it was done not only to stop and frighten Pence into doing what he constitutionally could have done. It's a lot of garbage that he couldn't.
That's right.
And number two, I think they pretty much figured they had him intimidated to ruin Trump for any future election.
Definitely.
But probably the second one.
And they, when Pence says that he couldn't do what they wanted him to do, he's lying because they changed the rule after it happened so that he couldn't anymore.
Well, I give you a really simple legal answer to it. There is no provision for him doing it, and there is no provision prohibiting him from doing it. So it's in his discretion. And if he had done it in a reasonable way, like called an adjournment for a short period of time, I can't tell you for sure it would have been upheld, but there would have been a good constitutional argument that you could do that, because he was not being requested to change any vote by anyone that I know of. He was being requested, and I helped to get the letters to him. He was being requested by a group of congressmen or state assemblymen from different states to give them more time because they believed, and they gave him evidence, that their vote was inaccurate. Now, their vote was surely inaccurate. Whether you believe the election was stolen or not, you cannot possibly believe that those numbers were accurate. There's so much proof now that they weren't. So he was asked to give them 5 more days so they could be sure that they had submitted correct numbers, and that he could have done. And and nobody was. He was never in jeopardy of being killed, or none of them were in jeopardy. What were they going to be killed with? They didn't have anything to kill anybody with.
It was all fake. It was all fake to stop Pence from doing the right
thing.
The
only way they would have gotten killed. The only way they would have gotten killed is if they showed up and tried to help Ashley Babbitt. Then they might have gotten killed.
Right.
His wife must have told him not to do it, Pence.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dennis. We have some breaking news to get to.
Oh.
So we want to thank Dennis. We have some breaking news.
Breaking news.
Law enforcement has told the Associated Press that the main mass shooting suspect has been found dead.
Whoa.
The man, Robert Card, suspected of fatally shooting 18 people and wounding 13, has been found dead, authorities said Friday. Robert Card, who was wanted in connection with the shootings at the Bar and Grill and, of course, the Recreation Bowling Alley, is believed to have died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, a law enforcement official told the Associated Press. The official was not authorized to discuss details of the investigation publicly and spoke to the AP on the condition of anonymity.
Dead, what could they possibly, unless there's another person?
A 10 p.m. news conference has been
we'll be
scheduled.
finished before that, and you can all watch the 10%, the 10%, the 10 p.m. news conference. I don't know what would be prejudiced by their. Well, maybe they will give out a lot of information at the 10 p.m. conference. There's no reason not to give out the information now. The defendant, whose rights could be violated by giving away such information, or the ability to catch him, is now dead. unless there are still the possibility of
Yeah.
accomplices. And we can't discount that, not necessarily in carrying out the shooting at the time, but in helping him plan for it. Or I have no reason to believe they are, but I would never write that off without
Yeah.
investigating it.
They should, yeah, you would think they'd want to announce that as quickly as possible as residents in that whole region were sheltering in place. And I'm sure there's a lot of fear and anxiety going around.
I can also tell you from my observation of news coming in that the operations yesterday in Gaza that were basically preparatory have expanded considerably tonight. So I guess what we're seeing is what Joel told us from Israel, which is that the invasion is kinetic, meaning it's going to take place in stages. So tonight apparently was a much more expansive invasion into Gaza. Now, I really do feel that this is a very dangerous way to do it for the troops. But think about it. Let's suppose that they invaded 10% of Gaza right now and taking it over. You can see pictures there of the tanks going across the wall. They can't see it, but I can see it. If we can get it, it'd be good. But in any event, I want you to envision the following. So you're invading 10% of Gaza. The other 90% of Gaza is fully capable of shooting at you. You're not doing it. They're not engaged. They can shoot at you with their arms. They can bring their soldiers there. It is, you will take less casualties, Israeli casualties, if you invade all at once and you engage everybody. Then the regiment or whatever the hell they call these terrorists 10 miles away can't come and help the ones that are under attack because they're engaged in defending themselves. I don't know. It's almost as much common sense as you don't take out the troops before the civilians in a terrorist country. Biden did that and got many people killed. I can't believe that Bibi would do this other than to satisfy the demented moron sitting in the White House. It makes no common sense to do partial invasions. It's going to mean that the number of casualties will be that much more. You would, if you did it all at once and you engaged all the people that could kill you at the same time, then they can't fall back on reinforcements. Gosh, does that make sense?
What would they claim? They would claim they're trying to minimize Palestinian.
No, they want to make.
casualties?
Oh, I don't know what they claim. What do they claim about Afghanistan? What do they claim about giving up Bagram? We didn't need an air base 400 miles from China.
Well, that's completely ridiculous.
They don't bother to claim. They don't bother to claim because the press doesn't require. Nobody in the press will ask the question that I just said. Now the thing that comes across says Israel launches major ground attack on Gaza. So maybe Bibi prevailed and he's going to do a full-out attack. I would much prefer that. It doesn't mean they're not going to lose people, but I bet you cut your losses in half if you just do it right. You put every known offensive capability of Hamas under attack at the same time. And Gaza is 25 miles long and 7 miles wide. You can't, and a lot of that 25 miles you don't have to cover. So we're not talking about anything close to an impossible situation. With 200,000, not even 300,000 Israeli troops, you could cover 90%. Well, you could cover all of the offensive installations you're aware of, and then have enough left to make on-the-spot decisions to go to the ones you discovered. So you basically have them as fully engaged as possible. So they take more casualties and you take less.
We're going to find out.
So let's hope they did it that way.
So do you expect Israel to ramp up the invasion in the coming days?
Well,
man?
it says on that just little ticker, it says that it was a major attack. They launched a major attack. Now, major attack can mean all of it. major attack could mean some percentage of it. And the proof is in the pudding. The larger it is, the safer it will be for the Israelis. Douglas Murray, with whom I agree and disagree at different times, has a very interesting article today. And he is criticizing, several people, Vivek Ramaswamy and Marjorie Taylor Greene, for not wanting to give any money to Ukraine or Israel, pretty much not give them any money. And he's saying that, and they think they're following Trump. They think they're following Trump, and they think they're following a philosophy of America can withdraw from the world. Now, it is true that Trump never had a philosophy of America should withdraw from the world. He had a philosophy of America first, and he hardly withdrew from the world. He operated a very, very active foreign policy and a very successful foreign policy. He negotiated with North Korea. He negotiated with China. He negotiated with the Middle East. He brought more peace to the Middle East than anyone. He accomplished agreements in the Middle East nobody else could. He calmed things down in Korea. He struck back when he had to. He used American military when he had to.
Very few times.
And he put in foreign aid. But he also got the Europeans to pony up part of theirs. But he put ours in as well.
Yeah.
So I think they're overdoing it. This is like taking things to an extreme. Do we give away too much money without appropriate controls over it? 100%.
Absolutely.
Is the amount of money we gave to Ukraine the issue, or the lack of control? Or should we have given them no money? Well, I think it would have been completely irresponsible for us to give them no money. They were being attacked by one of our 3 or 4 biggest enemies. If that enemy has success there, that success will be used for our disadvantage. And we should have given them money to help them. I do not believe that our national interests are engaged enough there that we should give them troops. I think that was a correct decision. But the money we gave them seems very excessive. But beyond being excessive, it is totally irresponsible since it has no controls on it.
Nobody knows where it's going.
That money, particularly, first of all, the money to any country should have controls on it. But money to a country that is the second most corrupt country in the world should have controls on it for the people, for their own people's benefit. Like giving humanitarian aid to Hamas, or giving humanitarian aid to Palestine is completely insane if you don't realize you're giving it to Hamas. You're just pretending to do something good. Giving aid to Germany during the Second World War is giving it to Hitler. Unfortunately and tragically for those people, dictators are in charge of their country and take everything. But you can't live in a world where you make believe that's not true. So I do think the well over 100 billion to Ukraine seems like an excessive amount of money in and of itself. But more excessive than that is that we don't know what happened to it. And it does seem strange that they haven't done better. And they haven't, particularly now when they've attempted several times to create some openings in the Russian lines, and they're getting a fortune to do it.
And if the dictators,
and they're not having any success. They're not having any success in doing it. It should involve a real accounting of the money and what do they do with it, and why isn't it working? And now he's given them 100 billion plus. Nobody knows exactly how much, but he now wants to give them 60% again of that. 60 billion. What is the 60 billion going to do that the first 120 billion didn't do?
and if they're in cahoots with the Biden administration,
is that possible? Even I find it hard to believe
is it not
that Americans are taking kickbacks on this.
Kickbacks, a money laundering operation.
I mean, I have no. Well, then it would be done by Zelensky's best friend. If there's money laundering going on, Kolomoisky's bank is doing it, and that is the guy who created Zelensky. So now you have a really horrible situation. I will not believe that until I see evidence of it. Will I exclude it entirely given the dishonesty of these people? No. But will I buy into it? No, I won't buy into it until I see evidence of it. What I will buy into, and which I can almost tell you for sure is happening, some percentage of that money is being diverted by the oligarchs. They're not going to let $100 billion come into their country and not glom their fair share of it because they believe they're entitled to it. And Zelensky does not have the control over that country to stop him, nor he might not even have the inclination to do it. There's no guarantee that Zelensky's honest. His major patron was the most dishonest guy in Ukraine. So we're just going to assume he's honest because he was an actor and because he acted bravely. I mean, there are brave people that are crooks, right? There are cowardly people that are honest. I mean, the two virtues don't necessarily go with each other completely. In any event, giving them $60 billion now is nuts. How about that? It is nuts. But to say that we're not going to give any money for foreign aid is equally nuts. And to say we're not going to give any money to Israel is ridiculous and very much against the interests of the United States. And if we didn't help Israel, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. We're going to lose a lot more Americans. And if you can't figure that out, you're too much of an ideologue to really protect other people. Go do something else for a living. Practicality and common sense is the key, not ideology, to everything. You can have an ideology. It's very good if you do, because you probably have more principles if you've got a good one. But you got to temper it with common sense. The most important quality that an effective executive or legislature can have is common sense. And it is common sense to make sure that Israel wins and that these maniac terrorists don't take over the entire Middle East. We'll lose our relationship with Saudi Arabia. We'll lose our relationship with Dubai. We'll lose our relationship with Egypt, with Jordan. And you may not like those countries, and those countries may have things wrong with them, but they're critical to us. And if we stick with Biden and we don't drill for oil here, we'll freeze during the winter. So this. You cannot analogize the national interest that exists in Ukraine, which is there, but not critical, with the Middle East and with Israel, and with the fact that people going after Israel explain to you that the next one they want to come after is us. Now, it might be that may be true with Russia too, but it isn't as overt. And Russia, we've been able to negotiate with for more than half a century. We haven't been able to negotiate with Iran at all, except give them money.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
And when we give them money, they still yell out "Death to America." So there's almost no way. I mean, the difference between Iran and Russia is both are governed by evil men. And both evil men are willing to commit war crimes and other things. Although I do think Hamas's acts were more grievous than Russia, but you can't be sure because I wasn't there. The difference is that one of them is a rational, evil genius. If not genius, smart tactician who makes mistakes. Putin made a mistake going into Ukraine. It's going to, no matter what problems it creates for us or Ukraine, it did him more harm than good, both in his economy and in losing relationships he was developing in Europe that could have separated people from us and from Ukraine. But in any event, he's a man that I don't think wants to commit suicide. It looks like he likes life too much. I always said that about Kim Jong-un. You can't be that fat and not like to live because you like to eat. And it turns out he hero worships Trump. So he really does. Trump gets back into office, he'll spin around his little finger. He may become an ally and go attack China for us. You never know. The Koreans don't love the Chinese, Nobody loves the Chinese. China was always the dominant power there. Vietnam, we never understood this when we were in the Vietnam War, but they're enemies right now. In fact, the reason that we would have to defend Taiwan is if Taiwan gets lost, we're going to lose all of that part of Asia because there'll be no bulwark against China. But Vietnam, Cambodia, I mean, they all have substantial elements that oppose China.
Japan too.
Japan frightens
They'd be
China.
the leading one. Yeah.
Japan frightens China. Japan may be smaller, but it has just about won every battle with China. And that's why Trump's efforts is militarizing Japan were so good. And it's a shame that we lost Abe because he was very aggressive about that. And the new leadership is in favor of it, but not as aggressive about it. And of course, Biden wouldn't harm anybody. So he's not pushing it.
He would have fixed this whole world problem.
He's going to get a chance to do it. I really believe it. I mean, despite whatever you think of him, the policies really worked. How can you compare the condition of the world in, let's say, 2018 to now? I mean, inflation alone, I mean, is ridiculous. Things are twice as expensive.
It was a rollout, the eloquent rollout with everything.
Nobody at war in 2018.
And he would announce before he was going to another country, I'm going over there and this is why I'm going. Then he would go and he would do it. And then he would
and he would know where he was.
He would actually know where he was.
Which is a big step.
Improvement.
Yeah. And he never fell walking up steps.
Yeah. Great, yeah. Great stuff.
Well, we got a big week coming up, so all of you have to get ready for it. Next week, we're going to be on at 7. Isn't that interesting? We're going to start at 7 next week. We're going to go from 7 to 8 with America's Mayor Live. And then we're going to go from 8.
8 o'clock, we want everyone to go to Newsmax for the show, right?
No, 8 o'clock, we're going to go with America's Mayor Confidential. So that's what we're going to do starting on Monday. This is our test. We're still in our test phase. Probably by Thanksgiving, we'll be all set. Okay. We're in a test period with them on Monday, guys. Not public yet. I'm trying to get my guys here to understand something I don't think they understand. It's still confidential and private. It'll be a Monday and Tuesday. It'll be a test. Okay. So Monday and Tuesday is a test, 7 to 8, and then 8 to 9. And we need you back. We need you back supporting us. And if you could buy our products, it would help us to expand and get to more people and get our message to more people. I think it's important because they get so much false information. So God bless you. God bless the people of Israel. We pray for them fervently, and we pray for the people of our country just as much, of course. But we also say a thanksgiving to God for making us Americans. Despite all our problems, we're still the greatest country in the history of the world. And we're the most fortunate people that ever lived. And don't ever forget that. And when people say things bad about America, stand up for it. Don't let it go by. You don't insult my country without a response. God bless America.